Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
KHJ Los Angeles.
Portions of the day's programming are reproduced by means of electrical transcriptions or tape recordings.
Oh, meet the Mets. That's right. Meet the Mets. Tomorrow's the night. This is Keith Grieve from 87sportsfans.com. And I'm your only illustrious host tonight here on 87 Sports Fans Live on Late Night Sports Radio. Welcome to the program, everybody. As we go through the various topics tonight, the phone number to call in with any questions, comments, concerns, 585-633-7487. That is 585-633-7487. Steve-O is MIA at 11 o'clock. Jim Sarantias, the Fantasy Greek, will join us for the NFL Hour, as is the usual. But leading off, we have a very special guest. He joined us earlier in the season, before the season began. Brad Cook from OOTP Developments. They publish Out of the Park Baseball, franchise hockey manager. Brad, welcome back to the program. How are you?
Hey, good. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I have been enjoying Out of the Park 16 all season long, and I chose to make it hard on myself because I'm a Met fan, so I'm a glutton for punishment, right? I don't like anything to be easy to get, so I started off as a AA manager, trying to build my career, and I'm also a control freak, so I can't sim, so I'm still in the first season. But it is really hard when you don't have any control over the roster.
Yeah. I've certainly heard people make that comment.
I'm the manager of the Richmond Flying Squirrels, and every time I get a hot batter, he gets called up, and every time I get a hot pitcher, I have no starting pitching, and every time I get a hot starting pitcher, he gets called up. So it's constantly, and my only goal is to not suck completely. That's a literal quote, folks. Don't suck completely in your first year. But if you're a baseball fan, it is a game of it just tantalizes you and indulges every instinct, and it's a pretty accurate recreation of the live game. So kudos to your folks over there.
Thank you.
Fantastic game. So, that being said, did anybody see this New York Mets team coming?
Yeah, I don't think so. I actually meant to take a look back at the preseason predictions that were out there and see if anyone even had the Mets, because a lot of people had the Nationals winning the division. I mean, I actually picked the Nationals to win the World Series before the season started, but
I think a lot of people did.
Yeah. So I'm going to guess very few people even had the Mets close to a playoff spot, let alone getting in, let alone being in the World Series right now. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I was asked on another show, the Johnny Babo show here on Late Night Sports Radio, what being a Mets fan, what did I think the ceiling was for the Mets? And I said if they're a team where if everything goes their way, they might have a pretty good season. Well, what is a pretty good season? I mean, they were a 78-win team last year, I believe. So they could be in the realm of 500, but boy, did that Yenis Cespedes trade change the whole makeup of that team.
Yeah, that was a pretty bold move by the Mets. It's funny because they were leading the division early in the year, and then they kind of faded a little bit, and the Nationals took over. And I thought, oh well, the Mets kind of overachieved for a little bit, and now things are kind of coming back to reality. But then the Nationals just had all their problems. I mean, that incident with Papelbon going after Bryce Harper in the dugout just seemed to sum up kind of just how off kilter that whole season was for them. And it was just amazing to watch them just implode. And I mean, the Mets just had no resistance. And I admit, I thought, well, okay, they won the NL East, but you got, the three best records in baseball in the Central. And, I mean, well, are they going to really get that far in the playoffs?
They went the whole season without being able to beat the Cubs one single game. And
Right.
I think there was
And then
0-7.
yeah. So.
It's just it's one of those things where you turn all the tumblers and just things just click and you get on a roll. But I think the real tip your cap to Sandy Alderson was that, because it wasn't just the Cespedes trade, it was the deal that brought Tyler Clippard over, Addison Reed as well, a lot of bullpen help because that was a glaring need. But he did it without giving up any of his prized arms. You still have Harvey, you still have DeGrom, you still have Matz, you still have Syndergaard. And we didn't even get to see Zach Wheeler all year because he was rehabbing from Tommy John surgery. So there's another young arm the Mets have that isn't even contributing to this run. So
Yeah, they've got a formidable young. I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only person to make the comparison to the Braves of the '90s and the Glavine, Maddox, Smoltz trio, and they always usually had a fourth in there. I'm trying to remember offhand, but usually there was a pretty decent number 4 in there too. So I mean, they're kind of primed to really kind of roll for a while, especially with that starting rotation.
So I have a World Series trivia question. And I think it's a good one because I would never have guessed that this person was the answer. And folks, if you're listening, 585-633-7487. If you know the answer, call in with the correct answer, and we will hook you up with a free copy of Out of the Park 16, a must-have for any baseball fan, like I said before. So here's the question. And Brad, if you know the answer, obviously don't share it. Who is the career leader in World Series batting average? The career leader in World Series batting average. 585-633-7487. 585-633-7487. The first correct answer wins a copy of Out of the Park Baseball 16. So, flipping over to the Royals now, if you're Ned Yost and you're looking at Harvey, DeGrom, and Syndergaard in that order, are you trying to figure out how exactly you're going to score runs on these guys? I mean, if you look at the Royals, they were kind of middle of the road in the AL and on base percentage, which but they're second in batting order or batting average, excuse me. But if you can't get the guys on base against that trio, you're going to be fighting an uphill battle.
Yeah, I mean, and of course you don't have much room for error in a World Series in a 7-game series. So, yeah, I mean, I think the Blue Jays, obviously with a more high-powered offense, would have had an easier time. But I don't know. I mean, they're going to have to score runs the way they always do, play a lot of small ball, steal bases. Try to move guys over when they can and be really, that's one thing Yost is good at, is being strategic and figuring out the best way to kind of attack that. But it's not going to be easy.
So Johnny Cueto is kind of like the wild card in all this because he didn't pitch all that well once he came over from Cincinnati. And I think if you're the Royals, you are hoping and praying that you get a decent outing from him, because if he decides to play gasoline can, the whole series could blow up in your face. Or just because the Mets pitching is that good, like you said, there's no room for error in a World Series at all. But if push comes to shove and the Mets get their backs up against a wall, then you just start bringing in the aces in relief, in a game 3, game 4, something like that. So I think it's important for the Royals to get off to a good start and put the Mets kind of on the defense.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at last year, Game 7 with Bumgarner coming in for the Giants and helping seal the deal against the Royals, I mean, that's the kind of thing the Mets could pull out if it has to go 6-7 games, if they need to pull in with Harvey or DeGrom in relief or something like that. They have that, and I don't think the Royals are not as formidable in that regard. I mean, it's not that their starters are bad, but they just don't have that kind of same ability to do that and really kind of make it tough for the other teams. So yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting. I was just running a bunch of simulations for our for my World Series kind of prediction post, and I admit I haven't compiled all the numbers yet and everything, but I did see a bunch of 7-game series. So
that'll be fantastic.
This one could definitely go the distance. And it was funny too, because when I was writing it up, both teams haven't won in, for the Royals has been 30 years, for the Mets has been 29 years, and not only that, the last time both teams won the World Series, they won in 7 games. They were both down 3-2 in those series. Both series had some Game 6 drama and stuff that went on, as people probably remember. I mean, not only was there the Bill Buckner in the 86, but in 85 there was that blown call at first base late in Game 6 that allowed the Royals to come back against the Cardinals and win that game. So there was a lot of stuff going on the last time both those teams won. So it'd be pretty interesting to see this one go the distance and potentially have some unique moments.
Everyone was talking last week about Back to the Future 2, predicting the Cubs winning the World Series and all that junk.
Right.
It's kind of funny that we now have the world champions from 1985 and 1986 facing off against each other, which was the 2 years that Back to the Future 1 was in theaters. It's kind of
right, yeah. So there's that. There's still that 80s connection if people want to still kind of ride that Back to the Future wave.
And I mean, let's be honest. We're going to see at least 2 or 3 replays of George Brett going nuts about pine tar.
I watched that again a while back just for fun, just that, not the whole game, just that kind of that moment. And that was definitely quite a moment, watching him fly out of that dugout and freak out and scream and yell, and that was definitely interesting.
So you said you're compiling the World Series sim. When can fans read what the official prediction is for the World Series?
Well, I expect to probably put it up tonight. It'll be at blog.ootpdevelopments.com. We've got a newsletter coming out tomorrow with our annual World Series special. I'm going to spill the beans right now. We're going to have the game on sale. We're going to have a really good discount this year, so for people who haven't taken the plunge yet, they should be pretty excited about that. So if you didn't win the game tonight, never fear. Check it out tomorrow, ootpdevelopments.com. Starting tomorrow through November 4th, regardless of how long the World Series lasts, you'll get a really good discount on the games. So, the results will be in the newsletter too from the World Series sims.
So the trivia question again: who is the career leader in World Series batting average? Career, not single series. Career leader in World Series batting average. You can call 585-633-7487 with the correct answer. If you are listening to this on demand, you can also email it to myself, Keith Grieve at 87sportsfans.com. And if you are the first correct answer, I will hook you up with Brad, and we'll get you a copy of the game. Okay, so now I see that you are a Phillies fan.
Yes.
By your avatar on Skype.
I gave it away.
You gave it away. So are you able to pull for the Mets, or are you really hoping? Because I have a hard time pulling for anybody in the division.
Oh yeah, me too. If I'm going to step out of my official unbiased role as PR marketing guy, I'm going to say yes. As personally, as a Phillies fan, I've never cared for the Mets. You're free to hate the Phillies as well. I was certainly hoping the Cubs would beat them in the NLCS, not only because of the Back to the Future thing, but just because and I've always been a sympathizer with the Cubs. Just because I've Phillies fans have shared a lot of heartbreak as well over the years, so I've always sympathized with the Cubs too. I can. I mean, I'll definitely be rooting for the Royals in this series, and pretty much that whole NL East. I mean, it's kind of like I'm an Eagles fan too, and the NFC East is pretty much every other team is a team I hate too. So it's but those rivalries are fun though. I mean, it's always. it's always fun to see that. Those are rivalries that go back a long time, especially in those in the NFL. So it's all good.
So have the Phillies named a manager now, or are they still on the interim?
You mean GM or I thought McKinnon was the manager, and then they just actually named a GM.
Yeah, because Ruben Amaro is going to be a first base coach now. Did I see that?
Yeah. I joked on Twitter that he was going to trade the first base bag for an old catcher's mask.
Wheeling and dealing.
Yeah, that's crazy. I don't know if I could think of any GM losing his job and then stepping down to something like that, stepping down to a first base, like a base coach job or something. I mean, maybe it's happened before, but it just seems so odd to do that. I mean, that just really shows that his reputation as a GM has just got to be completely toxic within baseball. It doesn't sound like anyone wants to touch him.
He's the Isaiah Thomas of Major League Baseball.
Yeah. He's really poisoned the waters for himself. If he has to make that move, I mean, I don't know. You think maybe his pride would kind of get in the way to be like, no, if that's what I have to do, maybe I'll go figure something else out. But yeah, I guess he wants to stay in baseball and figure out a way to get back into a front office somewhere.
Because I mean, I don't know if anybody outside of Phillies fans really understand how much pain you all went through while that team got to where it got to under Charlie Manuel. Like the Phillies were bad for a very long time after '93.
Yeah,
I mean, it was rough for a while.
Oh, well, in '93 was just a little oasis in that desert. I mean, after they lost the World Series in '83, I went to games back in '83. I went to the World Series in '83 as a kid, and then I just remember how they just entered a wasteland after that. And except for '93, I mean, that was it until 2007. So it was a long, long time that they just kind of wandered through the desert, trying to find their way out.
Well, '93 was set up because you were able to fleece my team for Lenny Dykstra, Juan Samuel for Lenny Dykstra. I mean, looking back, oh my gosh, I still can't believe that trade went down.
Right, yeah. Well, the Mets are the team that still had Bobby Bonilla on the payroll, right? Are they still paying him?
Yeah, and he's still making more than Harvey, DeGrom, and a bunch of other players that actually contributed to a winning season.
Yeah, so I mean, the Mets have had their own kind of purging they've had to do to kind of get rid of the past and reposition themselves. So it took the Phillies a long time. But like the Mets, though, I mean, they had a lot of homegrown talent that came up. I mean, Hamels and Ryan Howard and Rollins and Chase Utley and all. I mean, so many guys came up through their farm system and became stars of that team. So it was a lot of fun to watch. But it was really frustrating to watch it all kind of go off the table. And I knew it was like. I mean, because after '83, I mean, the '83 team was old, and that team got old fast, and there was no one to really come up and replace them. And you can't just sign enough free agents or trade for enough guys to keep it going. And I mean, I just saw the same thing happening this time. I mean, I just knew that team got old real fast, and they just didn't have any way of stopping that downward spiral.
I just called up the 1983 Phillies on Baseball Reference, and it has their top 12 WAR players. And number one, I would assume, would have been Mike Schmidt, but it wasn't. It was John Denny.
As you were saying that, I was going to say John Denny. It's funny. I have his autograph somewhere, actually. We used to hang out after games back then, and my dad found out where to hang out when outside the clubhouse as players came out. But it's funny. Yeah, he was a Cy Young winner that year, right? I mean, he just one of those flash in the pan guys who was just so amazing for 1 year.
19
didn't really do a whole lot else.
19-6 with a 2.37 ERA.
Yeah.
Wow. That's fantastic. You're right. Flash in the pan, and what a bright flash that was.
Yeah, it was. That happens, right? It's just that's one of the funny things about baseball. There are those guys who, even a guy like Roger Maris, right? Never hit more than 30 or 35 home runs in a year, but had that one season where it all clicked. So
yeah, and that was a year where they changed managers mid-season too. I'm seeing
the Phillies, yeah. Was it Pat Corrales
started
and got fired? Yeah, and I can't remember who.
Paul Owens.
Paul Owens, the Pope. Yeah, they called him the Pope. That's right.
Also, the general manager came down from the front office. So
yeah,
worked for the Phillies, didn't work for the Marlins this year.
Yeah.
So. The Marlins were another team a lot of people expected a lot out of this season. A lot of people were picking Nationals, Marlins, Mets in that order in the NL East. I remember seeing.
Yeah. Well, the Marlins are a team that certainly, got some young talent and trying to position themselves, but I don't know. They just can't seem to get it together.
All right, so the trivia question is, who is the career leader in World Series batting average? You can call 585-633-7487 for the correct answer, or email KeithGrieve at 87sportsfans.com. The career leader in World Series batting average. First correct answer wins a copy of Out of the Park Baseball 16. Brad, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm guessing it's probably an unlikely person, right? It's going to
be. Thinking about it, yeah, it's not somebody that I would guess was going to be this level. I'll give you the hint. I'll give is that he has a 500 batting average and 28 plate appearances.
Huh. So there's you're not. There's no minimum then, obviously for.
Well, yeah, it's just It's not somebody that's been to a ton of World Series, but he did have 28 plate appearances. So what's that about? That's about one World Series.
Yeah.
Batted 500 for that World Series.
So he did play in one World Series, then you're saying?
Yes.
As opposed to maybe a guy who was kind of more a utility player, had 28 plate appearances over a couple World Series or something.
Yeah, Paul Molitor played in a couple. He had 61 plate appearances, so in 13 games. He's number 10 on this list with 418. Barry Bonds is number 3, so don't guess Barry Bonds. Which is Marty Barrett, 35 plate appearances, batted 433. He's number 8 on this list.
Oh.
So, just some interesting names going back and forth. So, Brad, where can folks find the game? You said that there's going to be a blog post tomorrow or tonight about the World Series prediction, and then there's going to be a big old sale on the game?
Yep, big sale starting tomorrow. Our steepest discount ever on the game, so I hope people hit the site, ootpdevelopments.com. Check it out. You can follow us on Twitter at ootpbaseball or facebook.com/ootpbaseball.
And you guys have another edition of Franchise Hockey Manager out?
Yeah, it's out right now. It came out just, I guess, about a month and a half ago. Someone else is doing the PR marketing for that now, so I'm not as involved with that. But yeah, they put out FHM 2, and I know it's doing pretty well so far.
All right. And there was a little bit of a tragic news about the development of Behind the Sidelines.
Yeah, Beyond the Sideline football. Francis, the lead developer, he's struggling with some pretty serious health stuff. So, development of that game's on hold right now. He worked on Football Manager, the big soccer game for Sports Interactive, so he's got a history with sports sims, and he knows what he's doing. It's unfortunate. We are looking for someone to step in temporarily and kind of help out with that game in the short term. And so if anyone out there wants to hit us on Twitter or something, if they're interested or know someone who might be, they can do that. But we'll have more news on that game at some point.
Best wishes to him in his recovery.
Thanks.
All right. So Brad Cook from OOTP Developments, thank you for joining us, and we'll hope to have you on, well, probably after the World Series maybe, or maybe next spring before spring training.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. Brad Cook, OOTP Developments, get the game Out of the Park Baseball 16. You're listening to 87 Sports Fans live on Late Night Sports Radio.
Second to keep breathing in the moment before it's gone. You never know when love is lost until you find just what it costs to be wrong. falling fast asleep, and as they dream of ghosts of beats filled with desire, the trance of life is all around, a chance to take is always found. Oh, writing on the lullabies, I'm alone in living life. Oh, in the final hours of night, do you remember? Lost or found, love lying by your side. In the final hours of night, do you remember? Lost or found, love lying by your side. Take another second to keep breathing in the moment before it's gone. Never know when love is lost until you find just what it costs to be wrong. I wonder if you think of me passing by, you think you see me coming. I wonder if you pull me in, kiss me just one time again. The final hours of night, do you remember? Lost or found, love lying by your side. In the final hours of night, do you remember? Lost or found, love lying by your side. In the final hours of night, do you remember? Hours of night, do you remember? Lost or found, love lying by your side. In the final hours of night, do you remember? Lost or found, love lying by your side.
Baby, you're a mystery. Tell me what's a girl gotta do? Looking at the history doesn't seem to give any clue. Just when I think I understand it all, you seem to unravel some more. Ooh, la, 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 ooh, I never know nobody like you. Ooh, la, 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 ooh, now I know. Baby, you're dynamic. Ooh, la, 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 ooh, la, 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 oh.
Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
You ready? Let's go.
87 Sports Fans Live. Keith Grieve here, taking you through the second segment of the program. In the first segment, we had Brad Cook from Out of the Park Developments, responsible for the fantastic PC or MAC game, Out of the Park Baseball 16. Trivia questions to win yourself a copy of said fantastic game. Who is the career leader in World Series batting average? First correct answer, either over the phone or through email, 585-633-7487, or email it to me, keithgrieve at 87sportsfans.com, and we will get you a free copy of that game. Check out the blog also on the website, Out of the Park's website. They will be sharing their World Series prediction, the official World Series prediction based on their simulations of what's going to happen. So there you have it. Big night tomorrow night for myself, being a Mets fan. Don't know how I'm going to control myself to be able to do producing duties on the box seats at 10 o'clock, and then the Hold 1005 show, the best wrestling show on the internet. They're at 11 o'clock Eastern Time. The Mets and Royals, the New York Mets in the World Series. Like I can't stop waxing romantically about this team this season, just because nobody expected anything like this. But it's just going to be. I'm just going to be giddy all over myself. But I digress, because there's some things that have happened. There was one incident that I really want to talk about, and I know we're going to talk about the NFL with Jim Cerentias at the top of the hour from thefantasygreek.com. But what happened with Greg Hardy on the Cowboys sideline yesterday? Now, the Cowboys are a little bit adrift, if you will. I mean, that's what happens when you lose your quarterback. That's what happens when you lose a top 3 wide receiver talent like Dez Bryant, right? I mean, Dez Bryant's at least top 3, if not the best wide receiver in the league when he's healthy. You don't take those two equations out, those two parts of the equations out, and just keep moving along. So the Cowboys are struggling, and Greg Hardy has a meltdown. Punching clipboards, kind of fired up. Punching a clipboard looked like out of a coach's hand, if you watch the video, which is, at the very least, disrespectful. And then he goes and gets into it with Dez Bryant, who's in plain clothes, and jaw-jacking at each other. It might be the first time that you take Dez Bryant's side in an altercation like that without even knowing the story. But now we're hearing that it's just Greg Hardy's leadership. We're calling it leadership. Really, that's what we're calling leadership? I mean, Jerry Jones, have you no soul anymore? I mean, this is not Greg Hardy's first run and his first incident of losing control. From everything that we've seen, heard, and read, this man has no control. And you just rewarded him by giving him another chance. Oh, but Keith, everyone deserves a second chance. No, not everyone. And the way that this POS totally circumvented the law to get out of any legal ramifications from what he did. And here comes Jerry Jones with his checkbook. Don't worry, Greg. We know you're not really that bad of a guy. Wink, wink. Just get to the quarterback. I mean, that's what it comes down to. I mean, we've always known that athletes are given a kind of a longer leash than the rest of us, but this is a blatant disregard for, don't even talk about justice. This is a blatant disregard for just human decency. We don't care what kind of POS you are as long as you sack the quarterback. It's the kind of crap that makes me really wonder if Jerry Jones has any kind of scruples at all. I mean, like, what do you stand for, Jerry Jones? And yeah, I know it's Jason Garrett apologizing too and everything, but don't think this comes from anyone else than Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones is the pace setter of that franchise. If Jerry wasn't comfortable with it, then I bet you we would hear a different story from Garrett. But because Jerry is defending him, calling him a team leader, embracing his passion, that's not passion. That's an idiot that can't control himself. And I'm all about getting fired up before a football game. But what he did, on top of everything else that we know about him, makes me wonder that how much are you willing to sacrifice? How much are you willing to give up as far as character? Okay? What's the word I'm looking for? What you stand for is not. That's not. I can't think of the word. I can't think of the word right now. But what makes you a person? What makes you a man or a woman, an individual? What you stand up for? Everything that creates your character. And that's not the word, but I'm blanking out right now. How much of that are you willing to sacrifice to win a football game? This is one of those times where, yeah, there are things bigger than sports. And I can't wait. I can't hope hard enough for Hardy to suck so bad and do something so stupid, so vile, that teams never give another POS like him another chance. It's that simple for me. He doesn't belong in the game. He should be incarcerated. He should be locked up right now. But instead he gets to get paid millions of dollars acting like an idiot on the sidelines. And Garrett won't discipline him for it. Because he's a passionate leader. What a bunch of crap. All you're doing, Jason Garrett, is spelling it out for everybody just what a bunch of spineless jellyfish you are in Dallas. And that's my Greg Hardy rant. I'm done. Moving on, let's scroll through the headlines, shall we? The Mavs and Rick Carlisle are closing in on a 5-year extension. Well, good. The Mavs would be stupid. Do you think the Dallas Mavericks are going to be able to be successful with anybody else on that sideline? I mean, forget about the fact that Carlisle is the guy that won an NBA championship in Dallas with the Mavericks. But that guy should be able to write his own ticket. I mean, you look at what the Spurs and Greg Popovich have been able to develop, be able to, build, contrive, if you will, over the years. That kind of stuff doesn't happen overnight. And in sports, I hope this is the beginning of a trend where coaching stability takes precedence over just making the knee-jerk reaction to just change the head guy. There's always exceptions to the rule, right? I mean, Joe Philbin in Miami needed to go, But a guy that maybe should be able to write his own ticket and kind of be there for, because, every franchise goes through it. They're really good, and then there's the downward cycle, and they bottom out, and then they come back eventually. And some coaches earn the right to ride the cycle all the way back around. Sean Payton is one of those guys. Whatever happens in New Orleans, and that defense is abysmal right now, and the offense is fighting the effects of Father Time, if you ask me. Sean Payton should be the head coach of the New Orleans Saints until he wants to retire. Unless he does something stupid. Of course. But, like Rick Carlisle, I believe, is a good enough coach and has won a championship that he should be allowed to stay in Dallas until he does something stupid or chooses to retire. These programs that exhibit success and then fade away, and then they change the head coach and they wonder why they never get it back, and they wonder why. It just mystifies me. It just does. So, good for Mark Cuban and the Mavericks organizations. Big fan of Shark Tank. LeBron James, according to Dave McMenamin at ESPN.com, after missing close to 2 weeks of training camp following an anti-inflammatory injection into his lower back, LeBron James was able to fully participate in the Cleveland Cavaliers' last two practices and confirmed he will play in Tuesday's season opener. Why? Why? What do you care right now if you're the Cleveland Cavaliers if LeBron James is out there for opening night? I know you don't have Kyrie Irving. You know, Iman Shumpert as well. Kevin Love is going to be back. Tristan Thompson, who you just paid a boatload of cash to, that you shouldn't have paid, will be back. In the Eastern Conference these days, the Cavaliers don't need anything higher than a 6 seed. And you know what? While we're talking like this, why don't I go for the full hyperbole effect and just say, as long as they make the playoffs, the Cavs will be in pretty good shape. You think Fred Hoiberg is going to turn on the lights in Chicago? I'm not convinced. I don't know, kids. All I'm saying is that if I'm Cleveland and my superstar, LeBron James, who's the face of the league right now, if I've got that guy on my roster and the guy just had to take an anti-inflammatory injection a couple of weeks ago, I'm not pushing him to get out on the court week 1. You can call me crazy. It doesn't matter what the Cavaliers do until February. Let him rest until the All-Star break. Let him come back in December. Play every other game until February. It doesn't matter in the Eastern Conference. The West is a grinder. We all know this. But in the Eastern Conference, it's just not necessary. It's overkill. And if June comes around or May comes around and LeBron's back locks up, what are you going to think about then? Who's going to be capable of knocking the Cavaliers off? The Raptors? The Pacers? Because they got Paul George back? The Hawks? No. The Bulls? No. It's still the Cavaliers conference. Easily. Yeah, hopefully the Celtics are a nice story and the Pacers will be respectable. The Raptors will even be respectable as well. The Bulls will put on a good show. But when it comes down to the playoffs, I don't care if it's home court, road court. It doesn't matter. It's still LeBron James. And it's still going to be Kyrie Irving. Who, let's not mince words here. If Kyrie Irving is healthy in the finals last year, they win that series. Yeah, I said it. The Cavaliers would have beaten the Golden State Warriors had Kyrie Irving been healthy. And Kevin Love, too, not for nothing. But Tristan Thompson had raised his game so much that I think they could have won even without Kevin Love. I'm not saying Kevin Love's not necessary. Don't go putting words in my mouth. But pushing LeBron James to come back week 1. And maybe they're not pushing him. Maybe he wants to. But if I was Cleveland, I'd be like, dude, you're fine. You're good. Just relax. Just relax. Sad news in Minnesota. Minnesota Timberwolves stunned by the death of Flip Saunders. And, you know, he was the Timberwolves coach, president of baseball operations. Passed away at the age of 60. Complications from Hodgkin's lymphoma. He was a fixture in Minnesota. Nobody has done more outside of Kevin Garnett to make the Minnesota Timberwolves, put the Minnesota Timberwolves on the NBA map than Flip Saunders. And who knows, if it wasn't for Stephon Marbury crying for home, who knows what they could have done there. In Chicago, according to Nick Friedel, ESPN staff writer, Derrick Rose will play in the Bulls season opener against LeBron James' Cleveland Cavaliers, though he admitted to still having blurred vision as he continues to recover from a left orbital fracture. Of course he does. It may be totally legit. He could be absolutely seeing double. But Derrick Rose has come up with more reasons and excuses why he can't play in the last 3 or 4 years than anybody in NBA history. I don't want to say the dude's soft, but even the Pillsbury Doughboy is saying, wow, right now. So, there you have it. Oh, I wish Steve was on the show right now. He is no fan of Derrick Rose. It would be fantastic. It would be absolutely fantastic. In the Father Time is Undefeated category, according to the Associated Press, the Detroit Pistons have waived forward Danny Granger. The 32-year-old Granger came to Detroit in the offseason, in an offseason deal in which the Pistons also acquired Marcus Morris from Reggie Bullock from the Phoenix Suns. Granger averaged 6.3 points and 2.7 rebounds per game with Miami before being traded to Phoenix. He was the Pacers for a while. Just sad. One day you wake up and it's gone. That's why, talking about Danny Granger, it was the perfect cherry on the sundae to talk about after talking about Derrick Rose. Because Derrick Rose seems to find a reason why he can't play. And Danny Granger wakes up one day and it's gone for him. It's over. Seemingly overnight. I'm sure if we went back and looked at the numbers, we could see a downward trend and all that. But God, it seemed like it happened overnight. And for Derrick Rose to continuously come up with reasons why he can't play. But he has blurred vision, and he very well might. But I'll never be able to forgive him. I mean, forgive is a funny word because we're just talking about sports here. I understand it's not life or death. But I'll never be able to forgive him for the year where the Pacers had the Heat, the LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh Heat, on the absolute ropes. The Bulls had the Heat on the ropes. And Derrick Rose just didn't feel comfortable playing, coming back from his, I think it was knee injury that year. Who knows? There's been so many. Even though he was owning everyone in practice, he left his teammates out there in the wind, dangling, because he didn't, quote-unquote, feel comfortable. What are you playing this game for? Why are you out there? You had an opportunity to help spur your teammates to victory over a team everyone expected to own the NBA for 5 years. But you didn't feel comfortable. Well, Derek, I don't feel comfortable with you. And that'll never change. You're listening to 87 Sports Fans live on Late Night Sports Radio. When we come back, Jim Sarantias from thefantasygreek.com will join me for the NFL Hour. We will talk some football, talk everything happening in Week 7. You're listening to 87 Sports Fans live on Late Night Sports Radio.
Maybe I could offer up an
Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
Come on, man. And with the local DBC news, LL Cool J with a triumphant comeback.
Morris a little warm, but tonight,
Don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years.
Yeah, I know it's been a couple weeks, folks, but we are back, and Jim Sarantias from thefantasygreek.com is joining me right now for the NFL Hour. Jim, welcome back to the program.
Keith, it is so great to be here. I mean, I have this sense of deja vu because we're usually just together on Wednesdays. This is so strange.
Yes, and that's for all the serious fantasy football talk. But tonight, I'm looking for something more cerebral here.
Yeah. Good luck. Good luck.
So, week 7 was. There seems to be a recurring theme in this NFL season, and that is that you can't count on anybody.
Yeah.
We look at Buffalo. I mean, I know they're starting E.J. Manuel and not Tyrod Taylor, but you look at how that game went, where it was just god awful, and they fought back. You look at Indianapolis struggling mightily early, and then rumors or stories of a altercation between Jim Irsay and Ryan Grigson. Heated discussion about where the team is going. Looking at Dallas, where I just went on a Greg Hardy tirade in the last segment. And the Dolphins, I mean, they won that game 44-26, but it wasn't that close. The Patriots and Jets was probably the matchup of the week. Can we start in Oakland? They're actually in San Diego with the Raiders and the Chargers game. The Raiders win this game 37-29, but the Chargers have to put up 23 fourth quarter points to even make this respectable. At what point are we talking about Mike McCoy's job? I mean, honestly.
Well, let's see. Where are they in the standings? I guess that's where we have to start.
They're 2-5, 2-2 at home.
Yeah. I don't think he's at risk just yet, but he's certainly, a few games away from it. I mean, you can make the playoffs with an 11-5 record. You can make it with a 10-6. It's when you get to 9-7 that it becomes dicey. So he's got at least 2 more losses he can afford to have from now until the end of the season. So, I suppose he's got a lot. He's got some time to put it together. But to talk about it now, I don't think there's a problem talking about it. I mean, the biggest problem with the Chargers is straight out their running game. You could sit there and talk about Danny Woodhead. You can sit there and actually, that's all you can talk about. You can't really talk about Melvin Gordon because of his problems. And I'm starting to wonder if there's just not a confidence issue there.
Right.
And that part of that is being caused by the coaching staff on this young kid.
They haven't used him all that 85 touches, 85 rushing attempts in the first 7 games. So that averages out to be, like 10, 11 a game?
Yeah, that's not very good.
Yeah.
And I understand that they want to keep Danny Woodhead involved because of the weapon that he is. But, I'm sort of a believer that most running backs, now not all, because you could look at a lot of the running backs that are being very productive on 10 to 15 touches. But most of them, I think, need 20 or more to really get going.
Yep. The Chargers averaging 3.7 yards a carry, only 2 rushing touchdowns on the year, and both of those are by Danny Woodhead.
Yeah.
The rest of the Chargers' schedule is on the road against Baltimore, home against the Bears, then they get a bye week in Week 10, and then Chiefs at the Jags, the Broncos at the Chiefs, the Dolphins at the Raiders, and then at the Broncos. It's not going to get any easier.
No.
Not going to get any easier at all. And San Diego is suspect, to say the least. We just got, obviously just got done deriding them offensively, but defensively, you look at they're 27th in points allowed. And again, the week's not over yet, so the rankings are a little fluid because you still have 2 teams still playing. They're getting shredded on the ground, but what is this game? My point being is that the San Diego defense isn't all that to really jump and scream about because you beat them, but Derek Carr seems to be progressing nicely. Raiders are sitting at 3-3. That team, they're 3 games behind undefeated Oakland, but Denver. Sorry, excuse me. The rest of their schedule, they play the Jets next week. That I'm looking forward to that game. Then at the Steelers, home against the Vikings, at the Lions, at the Titans, home against the Chiefs, at the Broncos, home against the Packers. They get the Chargers one more time, and then at the Chiefs. They're sitting at 3-3 now. I see them maybe winning 4 games. I don't know. Is that a failure if they're a 5-win team this year? 6-win team?
The Chargers?
No, the Raiders.
Oh, the Raiders. Well, I can't say that it's a failure, but so far from what they're showing, this is a lot better team than I think people want to give credit for, especially defensively. I mean, they had that game against Peyton Manning, which I think you have to credit their defense. I think their defense was pretty darn good this past weekend. I mean, the offense pulled out so far ahead. The Chargers were in garbage time basically as they made their way back.
Right.
So, the defense played some great football prior to them turning to a prevent. We just don't want to give up any of the big plays. And so do I think it'd be yeah, I mean, I think right now you should be able to legitimately look at them and say they should finish 8-8 this year. Don't care who the competition is. I mean, this week they're playing I was looking at the game. The Jets.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you have to caution against fantasy-wise, I mean, especially the running game. Latavius Murray is a must-bench, but I was looking at David Carr, thinking to myself, I don't know. I mean, I think there's plenty of other people to play ahead of him. But if you were sort of stuck and you had nowhere to go, I mean, do you sit there and you cry and go, oh, he's playing the Jets, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know that you can necessarily say that. If only because Tom Brady put up some decent numbers. And I know he's not Tom Brady, but I mean, he's a quarterback.
Right.
So, if Brady could do something, I don't see how Carr can't. At least in the 200 to 250 yards and multiple TDs department. So let's see, what did Brady do? Brady put up 355 and 2 and 15 and 1. I mean, can Carr throw 2 TDs? Sure. Why not?
Well, you brought up Brady, so let's talk about that game next. The Patriots and the Jets. The Patriots putting on 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns to pull ahead and hold on to the lead. The Jets tacked on a 55-yard field goal with 18 seconds left in a valiant effort, but all for naught. The Patriots just don't care. And what do I mean by that? Tom Brady threw the ball 54 times against the New York Jet defense, which is not nothing. They're the tops in the league. Oh. And they ran the ball 5 times. They didn't even bother trying. It's like you run up against a good defense, you think you got to try to like nudge and make some ground and get them, kind of like on their heels if you can at all. But they just said, you know what? You do your thing, we're going to do ours, and they threw the ball 54 times. Tom Brady, 355, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Looking at Rob Gronkowski with 16 targets. The next nearest was Danny Amendola and Julie Edelman with 9. Brandon LaFell had a bunch of drops, but it's his first game back. You kind of like you hope that's just kind of like a first game of the year kind of syndrome for him.
For sure.
Regardless of what everyone's power rankings, even our own, will say, are the Patriots the best team in football?
They're certainly starting to look like it. I mean, if you can't get a defense on the field to stop that offense, and I really thought, I mean, both you and I picked the Jets to upset, and for a while there, it looked like our prognostication was going to come true.
I picked the Patriots.
Oh, you did?
I said I'm picking the Patriots, but don't be surprised if the Jets win this game.
Oh, that is such a wishy-washy. That's not.
But I picked the Patriots to win, but I wasn't very comfortable with it.
Oh my god, that's awful. Look, the bottom line was the Jets were in this game until the end. And actually, one of the plays that really hurt the Jets was Brandon Marshall not hauling in that touchdown pass. I mean, that pass was good to go. He was in the end zone. It was a TD. He just, I don't know what he did. I mean, it hit his hands. He didn't turn fast enough. He got there too quick. I don't know, but I think they scored that touchdown, and suddenly the feel of the game and possibly what was going on mentally for these different players would likely have changed, and maybe the upset would have happened. Now, I'm looking forward to their next meeting in New York. I think it'll be a better game, but we'll see. And I'm actually looking forward to this Thursday against the Dolphins. One of the things that Ryan Tannehill proved, and that offense proved, is they could do a lot with very little. He had only, a couple hundred yards passing, and he had 4 TDs on 18 for 19 throwing.
Lamar Miller rejuvenated.
Yes. I mean, I'm telling people, like, should I dump so-and-so and go get Miller? I'm like, how's he even on your waivers? Yes, go get Lamar Miller. Right. Make a trade for him, The whole team looks like, and obviously there's no guarantee on any of these things. I mean, it's only 2 games since they fired Joe Philbin, but everything about them looks like the team we saw in the preseason, which in the preseason looked like a team that was in midseason form. They were running the ball effectively. They were passing the ball effectively. They were scoring at will on teams. And I know it's the preseason, but there's something to be said for an offense already being at that point. That's usually what we see from Aaron Rodgers of the Packers. So I think that by getting rid of Philbin, they've, in essence, taken the reins off of the offense, taken the reins off the defense, are going to let them play like the way everybody expected them to play. And, it's rejuvenated the players. And I think that this game Thursday night, well, at the end of the day, I think you got to take the Patriots. I think it's going to be a high-scoring, good game where we're going to see a lot of things from the playmakers of the Dolphins, including their defense.
It'll be interesting to see the Patriots' defense because they had been suspect against the run, but they gave Chris Ivory nowhere to go last week against the Jets. So if they can do that again against Lamar Miller, I mean, the Dolphins ran for 248 yards against Houston. I mean, Houston's not perfect defensively, but their front 6, front 7 is as good as anybody's, I think, talent-wise. And they just ran all over him. And then you throw in Tannehill with 1 incompletion, 18 of 19 for 282 and 4 touchdowns. Lamar Miller for 14 rushes for 175 yards, another 3 catches for 61 yards, a touchdown rushing and receiving. All of a sudden, this offense is dynamic.
Yeah, it truly is.
And you look at the receiving. Tannehill only threw 19 times, but the target numbers, if you look at who's targeted, is 3, 5, 3, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2. It's spread all over the place. It's dynamic is the only word I can think of to describe it, and all that changed was the guy at the head of the tree. I don't know how anybody hires Joe Philbin again, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. You're absolutely right. I mean, he'll always be a candidate as an offensive coordinator, and certainly he was a good one when he was with the Packers. But when it comes to the management skill and the things you need as a head football coach, I mean, he hurt his team. He didn't help the team, and that's not good. So I think Bill O'Brien is in an interesting situation since you mentioned the Texans.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to be on the hot seat, too. I mean, things have not taken off.
Well, it's not even not taken off. The whole season was premised on the idea that they would have one of the top 5 defenses in the league, and all they needed was a quarterback that could get you down the field, maybe throw 1 passing touchdown, and then let your running backs do the rest. And that's how they would win football games. Their defense is awful before we even get to their offense.
Right.
And they're not stopping anybody. And I mean, what the Dolphins did to them was crazy. I mean, again, Ryan Tannehill threw the football 19 times. It wasn't like he pounded them with 40, 50 passes until, the defensive backs were just, tired silly.
And some of that was dictated by the fact they were up so much. They scored the first 41 points of the game. They're up 41-0 at one point. You just hand off, ISO left, ISO right, try to kill that clock. Shorten the game up. But Arian Foster for the Texans lost for the rest of the season. A torn Achilles. So you have an article up at the fantasygreek.com.
I do.
Illustrated. Who are you recommending players take?
I'm recommending Alfred Blue. Well, I'm also saying, look, the Texans are going to tell you who they're going to start. And whoever they're going to start is the player that you need to put at the top of your waiver list. Now, I know that doesn't necessarily breed a bunch of confidence in people, especially people who had Alfred Blue on their fantasy teams. At one point, I had him on two of mine. And but the reality is he when Arian Foster wasn't on the team or was injured, he had the most touches between himself and Chris Polk, and he also had the best game amongst either of them when he was given the football over 20 times. He rushed for 139 yards and 1 TD. So, I mean, to sort of look at this situation and not say, we need to give it to this guy and give him a chance. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me, and it seems to me he would be the guy that they'll go with. But again, there's supposed to be some discussions between Coach O'Brien and Rick Smith as to what they're going to do going forward. My opinion is I think they'll go with Alfred Blue, but I'm not them. So, right. And what I see and what they see are two different things.
It's just, I think my tweet response to your article was the best. Is death an option?
Yeah, seriously. I mean, look, if you're in a 10 to 12 team league, you don't have to do anything.
Right.
I mean, you shouldn't. You should be able to sit back and wait for which one sort of rises to the top, which may never happen. But if you're in a 14 or 16 team league and you're kind of looking around and going, I need somebody. I mean, there's nothing wrong with picking one of these guys up, put them on your bench. If you've got to give them a spot start, give them a spot start. Same thing in a 12-team league if somehow you just got hosed. You don't have any of the good running backs, right. or you're missing depth, and you got to go get somebody. I'm trying to see who they're playing this week. Oh, the Titans, so that's not necessarily one of the greatest matchups in the world.
Right. Titans defense is sneaky good. They won't have the numerically good stats to make you think they're good, but they play tough. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. They gave up, at least as of last week, they gave up close to 16 fantasy points to the running back position. So could he get you 100 yards and 1 TD if he's the only running back in the game and no one else rushes the football? The answer to that question is there's a possibility that he does. But the reality is if he's going to keep splitting touches with Chris Polk, and then whatever, let's say Brian Hoyer does in terms of running, then, there's a good chance that he won't. So, I would always consider my other options and play running backs ahead of him that will get more touches. Like if you had Charkandrick West, I would definitely start him. I mean, last week was sort of an eye-opener as to what kind of a running back he is because, prior to that, I mean, I had to put him on my waiver wire report because I saw in leagues he had been dropped after he just sucked, And I know in the only league that I was able to get him in, he had a terrible game his first week out for Jamal Charles, and I looked. I'm like, I got to keep starting this guy because he's going to get 20 to 30 touches, And as long as that's the case, there's value here in this week. If you started him, you were rewarded.
Yeah, I had I dropped Charkandrick West too. But I dropped him to pick up Stephon Diggs because I had a bigger need. I'm in a little bit of a conundrum with my fantasy team because I have Melvin Gordon, and I just don't know what to expect from him. I have Le'Veon Bell. Obviously, he's a must-start every week. But I also have, like I said, Melvin Gordon, C.J. Anderson, Matt Jones, which, now Matt Jones is going to be the workhorse back, or so we think. So maybe that'll work out in the long run. But I just put a waiver claim out for Darren McFadden because he's available in my league. So we'll see. I also had my defense on a bye, and my defense was the Denver Broncos, so I did not want to release them because I thought there'd be too much to lose if somebody else had claimed them while I released them. So
The Denver Broncos?
yeah, the Broncos defense.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I did the same thing. I kept them. And one league I kept them, and I had no kicker going this week.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to, like I had Danny Woodhead was the next person in line to get rid of him. Like, I'm not getting rid of him. I'm going to go without a kicker this week and keep my fingers crossed, pick up a defense. And I picked up, I think it was the Redskins, and they hosed me this week.
Well, but there's a great soundbite with Kirk Cousins.
A great soundbite?
Soundbite when he's walking through the locker room.
No, I didn't hear about this.
Oh my gosh, did you miss that? Oh God, he's all fired up after the Redskins come from behind win, and I can find it really quick because Johnny Bobo Facebook page posted it. And
what was his comment? I mean, I suppose.
here.
You like that? You like that?
That's Cousins walking to the locker room, and he looks at the media as he passes by.
Oh, I couldn't even imagine how.
You like that?
Well, one more time.
You like that? You like that?
Yes, Kirk, we like that. If you're a Washington fan, winning is always something that we like. It's not exactly. Thank you, Captain Obvious. All right,
Well,
so
you know what? I mean, it's not like he's had the easiest road to getting where he is.
no,
And yeah, I mean, I feel good for the guy that he got the 3 TDs. He was, I saw some sites that said, "Oh, he's got a favorable start. Go ahead and play." And I thought, no, I'm not doing that. That's kind of ridiculous. Kirk Cousins is not. He's not going to start.
So in your off the hip gunslinger opinion, is Robert Griffin III done in the NFL?
Well, here, first off, I am stunned that he's still with the Redskins. Just stunned. He's not even suiting up, is he?
I believe he is now. He wasn't for a while.
No. I mean, I just cannot believe that some other team out there either hasn't approached the Redskins or that the Redskins haven't hung him out as trade bait to somebody else to just sort of add to their team and, address some positions of needs, because he's got to be worth something. Now, maybe they're asking for too much.
Right.
But,
if what teams do you think would want RG3? I mean, he's a little bit. I don't know whether it's fair or not, but the rep on him is that he's a little bit of a head case.
Well,
He was listed as the third quarterback last week.
I think I'd be a head case too after everything that he is.
Yeah. I'm not saying it was fair, but
Well,
look, if you're Bill O'Brien and the Houston Texans, do you entertain it?
Yes.
If you're still around in the off season?
I think they should entertain it right now. I mean, Brian Hoyer was always the quarterback, and yet somehow, some way, they gave up on him, and it took them 2-3 weeks to come back and say, "Oh yeah, Brian Hoyer's the better of the two." But coaches see things that we don't get to see at practices and make evaluations of people and their leadership roles, qualities, and what players are willing to do and fight, whether they're going to fight for somebody or not. So, we don't know that, but when you see it on the field, you kind of say, well, I don't know what's going on over there, but over here it doesn't look so good. And, and it's hard to evaluate RG3 because we had his rookie year, which was just amazing. And he was able to, just with his own unique skills, just tear up teams. Well, not tear them up, but, put points on the board. Take a team that was the worst in the division and get them back to the top and get them into the playoffs. And then the following year, not do so well because of his knee issues and his injury issues. And and plus, by then, teams are catching up with him with the film, and they know how to defend him. And then sort of get squandered by the coaches. I mean, how do you take a talented person and make them worse? I mean, it's sort of like Colin Kaepernick, I think, would have a much better season right now, but I think coaches have screwed him up. I think there's confidence issues. I think there's issues related to the kind of offense that they're running. Has he had good games? Yeah, but he's only had them. And again, we analyze this on the fantasygreek.com for our subscribers. Skybox, by the way, for everybody out there listening. Just come to the homepage. You'll see the little icon. Just click it and sign up. And, only against bad pass defenses does he play well. So this weekend they're playing the Rams. I wouldn't touch him. Wouldn't touch him.
Yeah. So I don't think we'll get the opportunity to ever see it happen. But what I would love to see RG3 in would be Philadelphia with Chip Kelly.
I'm not sure that we're going to get to see that.
No, I think Chip
The
Kelly.
way this season's going,
Chip Kelly
does not look like he's long for the NFL.
No, he'll be back in college by the time the calendar flips to recruit visit time. He'll be back in college somewhere.
And you know what? For Chip Kelly, that may not be a bad thing. He's going to make money wherever he goes, and he'll install his offense wherever he is, and they'll have a good team.
You got to tip your cap, though. He did it his way.
And he's still doing it his way. So it's not over. I mean, it's only week 7. There's week 8. And so, there's plenty of time for them to do something. Let me see. Where do they stand? I know they're not doing so well these days.
Philly?
3-4. So they're not out of it. They're still in it.
No, they are. But it's just the bad seems to outweigh the good every week.
Yeah. And, this is the part I don't understand. I don't understand. The rest of the world is saying publicly, DeMarco Murray runs better when he's running downhill and not to the outside. And it's been this discussion has been going on for several weeks. And does Chip Kelly not watch TV at all?
Right.
Does he not watch has not one person said to him, or wait, has Chip Kelly not himself said, DeMarco was always a one-cut downhill runner. Maybe I should just try and make some plays that involve that.
Well, the killer is that DeMarco Murray goes out and does what he does for whatever reason, 18 carries for 65 yards, and then Ryan Matthews totes 6 times for 97 yards.
Yeah, and at some point you've got to go, you know what, I better get Ryan more touches here.
Yeah.
Because at a minimum he's more productive. And the bottom line is Kelly is going to be forced in a corner where he knows I have to win games. And at 4 losses, again, finishing 12-4 is fine, finishing 11-5 is fine, 10-6 is fine, but that 9-7, man, he's got 3 losses to give.
Yeah. The novelty has worn off of the Chip Kelly offense in the NFL, and it's time to start putting up. And whether you want to say it's he guessed wrong on Sam Bradford or whatnot, it's just not, it doesn't seem to be working out anyway.
One of the worst. Talk about a fantasy pro sort of going, oh my God, did I make a mistake? After those first few weeks of watching Sam Bradford, I'm like, he's just awful. This is not working. You just watch him, and there's miscommunication, and the offense is struggling. They can't run the football, which means he's going to have all types of problems passing. So I cut him in the only league I had him in, and immediately this guy runs out and picks him up, and I think the following weekend he threw 3 touchdowns or something like that. I'm like, what? Did it suddenly come together for him? I'm like, well, you know what? If that's the case, that's the case. But I don't buy it. And thank God, because, he's awful. Yeah,
it's just you want to give the guy the benefit of the doubt because he missed so much time with the injury. You got to get in the swing. He's got to feel confident in the knee again. And you get all that.
He's got that.
Yeah,
but it's not. But he's still under duress. And I'm walking. You look at the Eagles, and I don't mean to pick on the Eagles because they've got a bunch of talented guys there. But you look at the group of wide receivers, and compare them to the Rams, and certainly the group is much better than the Rams. But as a group, they're all sort of the same. There's no clear cut number one. It should be Jordan Matthews, but now we find out that he potentially has a wrist ligament injury that's been bothering him for the last few weeks, which might, explain some drops, but that's all it's really going to explain. There's no standout person that he could just go to. And he always seemed to have that, at least with the Rams. There was always sort of one wide receiver that he picked on, who wasn't a true number one, but would get the job done. And it just, it's even like the Colts. We could talk about the Colts. The Colts have this tremendous team they have another group of wide receivers that they're all sort of the same, but they're very uber talented, and yet they're not getting the job done.
Right.
And how do you explain that? I mean, Chuck Pagano's another guy, and was it during the break you said who was the owner, Jim Irsay?
Irsay and Grigson, the owner and the general manager, having a heated discussion, supposedly, after the loss to New Orleans.
Yeah. I don't blame him.
Yeah, it's how much money... But like Chris Carter and Mike this morning had a good point. The guys that they went out and got are old guys. They went out and got DeQuell Jackson last year. They went and got Andre Johnson this year and Frank Gore this year. And I think he said their average age is 27 and a half, which is old for an NFL roster. So it's where are you spending your money, Ryan Grigson, and why? Because Andrew Luck didn't all of a sudden forget how to play football. So he's not. He doesn't have the numbers. It's easy to say, well, Andrew Luck's struggling. But why is he struggling? The offensive line is a mess. The protection stinks. Can't really run the ball, even though Frank Gore has been able to put up some yards. But you look at how they gain it, and it's usually the kind of churning runs. He had 9 carries for 43 yards yesterday in a game where they trailed from 27-0 at one point, before coming back because of an 87-yard touchdown pass to T.Y. Hilton, a 46-yard touchdown pass to T.Y. Hilton. So the big play allowed that game to be closer than it was. So it really should. You got to think of that as like a 27-7 loss at home to a New Orleans defense that is suspect, to say the least, and an offense that isn't what we think of when a normal New Orleans offense is. So it's embarrassing on a lot of facets there for an Indianapolis Colts team that was a couple deflated footballs away from the Super Bowl. Sorry, I couldn't resist. I had to say that. I had to say the deflated football line. I couldn't resist. But what I'm trying to say is
the ball's too heavy.
They were a game away from the Super Bowl, and now they can't beat this Saints team the following year. I don't know. The Saints also had 12. The Saints were penalized 12 times for 100 yards, but they controlled the football. They had the ball for 38 minutes in this game.
Here, I would say that. Well, first we had this injury to Andrew Luck that nobody seemed to really know about. How much it impacted him, who knows? I mean, you'd think if he had a shoulder injury, it's somewhere along some injury report it would have been disclosed, and it wasn't disclosed until what he hurt himself.
Right.
So that may have had something to do with something, but you add at least the 2 major acquisitions this offseason were Andre Johnson, Frank Gore. They needed a running back. There's no question about it. And I think Frank Gore was a great signing. And it wasn't like he was taking some other person's place or someone that certainly deserved to be there. They had Ahmad Bradshaw, obviously, his injury issues. Now he's back. That's actually strange. I mean, I think it was the right thing to bring him back. But, why didn't you bring him back in the offseason? I mean, he'd been sitting there the whole time. And then Boom Herron never really got a shot. Because I think these internal things are important to keep in mind. It's a workplace. It's a place you go to work every day, and everybody works hard. And, the guys that are working hard that happen to have good practices, expect to get an opportunity to play, and that doesn't always happen. Sometimes the veteran is going to get it because he's the veteran.
Right.
But then you bring on Andre Johnson. And I think Andre Johnson was a strange signing insofar as, the reason they brought him in was because T.Y. Hilton, had a contract. He's entering the last year of his contract, and they're trying to work that out. And I think there might have been something lost there. Like they should have worked that out before they brought Andre Johnson.
Because
he's taken somebody's place,
right,
on a team that was very productive without him. Didn't need him.
Right. But, you look at how this team is being built, and at least on the offensive side, Andre Johnson and Frank Gore aside, most of the offense is being assembled through the draft. You look on the defensive side of the ball, and 9 out of the 11 starters are free agent signings from other teams. The only draft picks that are starting on defense are nose tackle David Perry and the other tackle Henry Anderson, both drafted this past season. So they're rookies. The defense has just been abysmal, and the offensive execution hasn't been there. I mean, you look at this team. I mean, Andre Johnson might be old. He might be a step slower, but he's still got the talent.
Oh, yeah. No question.
T.Y. Hilton, Dante Moncrief, Philip Dorsett has underperformed, but somebody thought highly of him to make him a first-round draft pick last spring.
Well, and then Philip Dorsett, again, that was a surprise draft pick.
Yeah.
The whole reason they got him was because of this issue with T.Y. Hilton. I don't think anybody expected them to pick up Philip Dorsett.
But then they have
they had Dante Moncrief.
And they have 2 good tight ends, too.
Right.
And Dwayne Allen and Kobe Fleener.
And even then, all right, so they get Philip Dorsett, and then they added Andre Johnson. And, yeah, all I'm trying to point out is there could be dynamics going on which gets into the heads of other players, which dictates how hard they're playing on any given Sunday.
Right.
And I would be speculating if I said that these players are not playing hard, but there is something about these additions that have messed with the chemistry of what was a pretty good team.
There's an intangible where you can't put your finger on it, but you watch it and it just sees it passes. It doesn't pass the eyeball test.
Yeah,
for lack of a better term.
What I don't understand is I don't understand how they're not scoring points left and right with all the different guys they have on this team. It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, they're running 3 to 4 wide receiver sets constantly. And I mean, they've got some of the best wide receivers in the league. And maybe part of this is Andrew Luck trying to force the ball to certain people to make them happy. Or maybe part of it is now that it's a game situation like this, I'm going to my go-to guys. And I know Andre Johnson's great, but I haven't spent 4 years with him.
Right.
Frank Gore's done a solid job. I mean, he's been solid.
I saw a stat like he's like 8th in rushing yards among running backs or something like that. It's like totally under the radar because when you watch them, they don't seem to run the ball well.
Yeah, I mean he'll get like 70 and 100 yards. I think he's got 2 or 3 TDs on the season. He's not involved in the passing game. They bring in Ahmad Bradshaw supposedly to conserve him. I'm sure it's helpful for Andrew Luck to have a guy like him around. And I almost feel like they should shut down Andrew Luck for a few weeks if he's still not right.
Right.
I mean, Matt Hasselbeck was doing just a fine job. I mean, he's no Andrew Luck, but, looked like it sort of made the rest of the team play harder.
Yeah. It's just something's there that
this is where we should have brought in our good friend George. What is his? Hang on. I got to get on Twitter for this. I can't believe this. George Bremer. That's who we should.
Oh yeah. He did the mock draft with us, didn't he? I think.
Did he? I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
No.
But next year we should get him. We should get a bunch of people that could draft for their own teams, or maybe they don't want to. They don't want to be so close to. But a sports editor for the Herald Bulletin in Anderson, Indiana.
First,
Indianapolis Colts beat writer.
We have a final score in Monday Night Football. The Arizona Cardinals defeat the Baltimore Ravens 26-18. Joe Flacco throwing an interception in the end zone in the closing moments to seal the game for the Cardinals. So the Ravens fall to 1-6. Oof, that's rough.
Yeah, things are not looking good in Baltimore. There's another coach on the hot seat. Oh my God!
Well, yeah, but you know what though? And I talked about this the last segment. I mean, some coaches I think, earn the right to, because teams are good, they perform well, and then there's inevitably a downward trek. And how far down that trek goes, how far the bottom out is, depends on a lot of different factors. But some coaches, I think, earn the right to kind of try to ride that out to see if they can put it together. And I think Harbaugh has done enough where I don't think you can blame it all on him. I think they might see another change in offensive coordinator this year.
But Mark Trestman's not a bad coordinator. I was actually thinking that watching the first half of the game. I mean, they're passing the football, they're running the football, they're doing all these things very effectively that the Bears weren't able to do. And how is it any different? I mean, the only difference is he's an offensive coordinator and not a head coach. And he's even in a worse situation over with the Ravens because he's got his starting tight ends are second-year tight ends. Then there's a rookie tight end. He's got a third-year wide receiver, Marlon Brown. I'm not sure if he's a third or a fourth. And then they've got the veteran himself, Steve Smith. And it's Steve Smith that's blowing up the stat sheet, right?
Yeah.
So, what's
receiver.
the problem here? I mean, they're scoring points. Their defense is terrible.
Yeah, but they're also 18th in rushing attempts, 17th in rushing yards.
But I bet you if you looked at them in the last 3 weeks or four, whenever it was that they played the Steelers, you would see those numbers a ton better.
They had 191 rushing yards against the Steelers, 181 against the Browns, 77 against the 49ers.
Okay.
36 against the Bengals. Yeah, but it's also about the attempts, though. More, the balance. I got the box score isn't up. Well, maybe I can get to it. Hold on one second.
Let's just look at Forsett since the Steelers game.
Forsett
I mean,
36.
in the first 3 weeks of the football season, they ran the football a total of 39 times. In weeks 4, 5, and 6, excluding tonight's game, they ran the football 65 times. And right there, you could see the difference that it's making. And on top of it, they also got Forsett involved in the passing game. He's had 11 receptions for 88 yards in these past 3 games. And in the previous 3, he had 12, but he wasn't as productive. He only had 41 yards receiving.
Yeah, and then tonight they rushed the ball 16 times and threw the ball 40.
Well, it is the Cardinals after all.
Well, yeah, but this game I think is more indicative of what Trestman likes to do. He likes to use the short passing game instead of a running game. That's why the Bears struggled so bad last year.
See, I don't agree with you. I cannot agree with you that that's the whole reason why the Bears struggled.
It is.
I know, because the previous year they were dynamos. They had the number 1, number 2, number 3 offense.
And then when you pass and pass and pass, defenses can sit back and just wait.
Okay, but then you wouldn't see as many 300-plus yard passing games as you are now. Keith, it doesn't. What you're saying makes absolutely no sense.
It does, though. You can get all the.
Derek Carr's got a few 300-yard passing.
You can get all the yards you want, but if you can't score, you can't score.
Hey, that has nothing. That scoring has nothing to do with the offensive coordinator. That has to do with the quarterback throwing a football to a guy down the field and him having to make a play. If his guys aren't making plays, you cannot blame him.
It's not that simple. It's really not that simple. The whole game plan.
That simple.
No, it is, because
the
every
problem
play.
With the Bears was they had internal issues. That roster those players had problems with him. What they were, I don't think we'll ever understand it.
Well, I think part of it was a lot of players didn't believe Lovie Smith should have been fired.
And I think you know what, you're probably correct on that.
But
I think that will haunt Chicago for a while.
As far as the offensive play calling and the lack of balance, every play in an offensive game plan builds upon each other, and the defense responds. And if you're pass, run, defenses stop pressuring. They stop rushing because they're gonna sit back and just play coverage and play base defenses because they don't feel like they need to. They can squeeze you in the end in the red zone. And if you can't run the ball, then you can't score in the NFL. It's that simple. nice tension here. I think that's a good time to end this show. Yeah, why not?
I'm trying to think if there's any other stories, though. Are there any other stories?
Well, what's your opinion?
Matt Castle.
Yeah, it's not, is that really a story though?
Well, somebody, and I used your line, somebody asked me who I preferred, Castle or Weed, and I brought up the whole, two puddles of vomit. Which would you prefer? Now, the offense looked more, explosive under Castle. Certainly, they did enough to stay in the game up until that special teams touchdown.
What's your take on the whole Greg Hardy tirade on the sideline?
I can't quite. Look, I get why the guy was mad. I mean, it's one of those things where, you kind of say the special teams guys, they do a lot, but they're not, if a game is broken up into 6s or 8s, maybe they're 1/8, 1/6 of the game. I don't know. I don't know what that number is. And so you're on defense, you're on the field for the other 3 or 4 of that 8, and you're working, you're getting banged up, and suddenly to see that happen, you're kind of like, how's this happening? Why are we losing this game? And, but that's where I think you have to keep your cool. Because I think the coach got right in there and wouldn't take it from him, and I don't blame him. I wouldn't take it either.
No, but the fact that bothers me is that Garrett and Jerry Jones are calling him a passionate leader, and it's like, you just need to stop with that crap.
But I suppose that's what it is. I mean, what else can you say it is?
He's a idiot with a short fuse. He can't control himself.
Well, it may be true that he has a short fuse, but being mad is not. There's nothing wrong with being mad. It has a lot more to do with what you're being mad about and how you're going about doing it.
And with him, it has a lot to do with his past. What he's been convicted of. He's a POS.
Yeah, I mean something like that. Well, that's something that I think he has to sort of.
Yeah, but if you're the Cowboys, you're just what's the word I'm looking for? Enabling an idiot to act like an idiot because you're saying it's okay.
Hey, if he gets the job done and that's all you can really ask for. Hey, I want to, even though E.J. Manuel threw those 2 terrible picks at the beginning of that game, I have to just say that for him, I saw him on the sideline after those 2 picks, and I thought, this has got to be the most awful thing on earth. And they're going to make him go back out there and throw the football because they're losing terribly. And you know what he did? He put up with he helped bring this team back.
Yep.
And almost win the game. So I know Rex Ryan's disappointed and everybody's down on them, and he's another guy whose job is weird as it sounds. I mean, he's not on the hot seat, but it's got to be very uncomfortably warm.
Right.
Considering how they're playing. Especially the defense. The defense is not doing well.
It was just sad to watch, because it started with the fumble and then the pick and then the pick, and by then it's like everything's blowing up around you. But you got to tip your cap to the fight, and didn't hang his head, and got through it, and they were within a Blake Bortles touchdown pass of winning this game after all that.
Or what do you mean Blake Bortles touchdown pass?
He threw a touchdown late in the game to win.
Oh yeah. That's right. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, and Bortles was 13 of 29 for 182 yards. He didn't light it up.
No, he didn't.
So
not at all. Not at all.
It came down to the turnovers, unfortunately, and just. But even it's like you said, it's amazing that even with all of that and how bad that was early, that they still were winning this game late.
Yeah.
So.
Then I think the only other thing. Well, Stephon Diggs is awesome. I'm so happy that this kid has broken through, and from a fantasy perspective, if he's on anybody's waivers, you need to go out there and get him immediately. There's one other thing that I found interesting this weekend, and I'm looking over the box scores to see if those sort of click my memory as to what it was.
Todd Gurley?
No, Todd Gurley's a stud.
He's a beast.
My God. We wrote that article in the Fantasy Greek about Devonta Freeman being the next coming of LT. That it could very well be Todd Gurley. Even though Devonta Freeman had a quiet weekend, that was pretty impressive what the Titans did in shutting down that Falcons offense and holding them to 10 points. Yeah. I was really stunned by that.
Got Matt Ryan to throw 2 interceptions. But Freeman still broke 100. He just didn't score.
No, I thought he did. I thought he had 100 and a score.
No, 116 yards, no score. Did he catch one? No, he didn't catch one either. Nope, no rushing scores for the Falcons. The only touchdown came on a Julio Jones touchdown pass.
Ah, gotcha. Okay, so that's impressive. Oh, Pittsburgh and KC. I couldn't believe Landry Jones waltzed out and couldn't wipe up the Kansas City pass defense.
He was bad.
I mean, yeah, after what he did with Martavius Bryant, I was stunned to see that.
There's some of those passes that, like, you talk about the eyeball test, but Landry Jones threw some of those passes, and I was like, my eyes kept waiting for the ball to come down. It's like I was looking at the receiver, like, oh, the ball's not down there yet. Where's the ball? Does it have dew on it? I mean, how high is he throwing that ball?
So now the big question is going to be, is Roethlisberger going to play this weekend? And I have a good feeling that as long as that guy can, some pain is fine. As long as it's not, ridiculous, I think he's playing.
Steelers
They cannot get another loss here.
Steelers sit at 4-3. They are currently 2.5 games behind the Cincinnati Bengals. Steelers have not had their bye yet. Neither have the Browns or the Ravens. But the Bengals look like the team to beat in the AFC. Period. Not just the AFC North. Are we going to be treated? I'm going to look at their schedule really quick. Do they play the Patriots in the regular season?
Who's
that? The Bengals. No, they
I feel that
not.
they do. No,
no, they don't.
They do not.
They do not. Nope. We do get them at Denver though. That might be an interesting game.
That'll be a great game.
Sunday night, week 16.
And I'm really interested to see how the Broncos respond coming out of their bye week. I'm the one saying, don't cut this guy in fantasy just yet. This has been a bigger issue about the sorts of defenses they've faced. Certainly he is older. I acknowledge that, and it's even a bigger issue as to the amount of pressure that he's under. Having been sacked 10 times, I think he's been hit, 30, 40 times already. Basically, numbers that it took an entire season to get to in the previous 2 seasons, and I think that explains a lot of what's going on, as well as the wobbly throws. Demaryius Thomas, why he's not catching, that's on Demaryius. That has nothing to do with Peyton Manning. And had Demaryius Thomas made some of the catches that he typically would, Peyton Manning's stats would be so much better. And the team, I think, would be winning more games and winning them more handily. So I'm interested to see how they come out. I'm interested to see what that offensive line does. It is no excuse that C.J. Anderson is just – he's terrible. Yeah. And I don't mean him. I mean the numbers he's putting up. There's no rushing. Even Hillman. Everybody's, Hillman. But, Hillman's a guy that, he'll get 10 touches, 15 touches, and he's got to make the most out of it. C.J. Anderson's a guy that needs at least that to get his game going.
I think the inability of the Broncos to run the ball has to be one of the most disappointing developments in the NFL season because of what Gary Kubiak was able to do in Houston with Arian Foster.
Exactly. And I think the only people that could be blamed for the problems running the football, the problems with the amount of pressure that's on Peyton Manning, the sacks, the hits, all has to do with the offensive line. And that's an offensive line that was having problems in the preseason. They've had injuries. They've got new people in there. So this bye week was, in my opinion, really huge for them to get their act together.
So Peyton Manning's quarterback rating the last 3 games before the bye week, 68.9, 62.3, and 53.3.
No good.
No bueno. No bueno.
No bueno.
Last 2 of those on the road.
So he's got some decent games they should be able to win, and they got some games they're going to have to work for.
Yep.
So we'll see which one it's going to be, and I look forward to it. Really do. This week they've got a tough game, right? They got
Denver.
Packers. They're playing the Packers.
Yeah, that'll be a good game. That'll be a
real good game. And the Packers defense up until Phillip Rivers, they were one of the top 5 units I'd say in the league.
They were a surprise.
Top 10.
They were a surprise.
We always knew they would be good. Our guy Sammy
Bissett,
who did the for our draft guy did all the analysis and their rankings. His only big miss, I think, was on the Jets. Sort of not believing that all this talent necessarily would gel until you actually saw it. And when I say a mistake, just mean they wouldn't be a top 5 unit, and that it might take some time for them to gel. I mean, they gelled pretty quickly, and but otherwise, I think he's been pretty much on. And he was the one that said, I think this Packers defense potentially is a top 5 defense if you look at the personnel and you look at the schemes. And plus, you look at the division. I mean, the way the Vikings, the Packers, and the Bears are playing, they're so underwhelming. All 3 teams.
You mean the Lions instead of the Packers?
I'm sorry, the Lions.
Yeah.
They're all so underwhelming.
Well, we knew what Chicago was going to be. And Minnesota, I think, you're just kind of waiting for the next step in the development of Teddy Bridgewater. And Detroit, they've just been a tire fire.
Yeah, and now with the firing of Joe Lombardi, the offensive line coaches, I mean, we're going to see pretty quickly, I think a different Lions team. I mean, they're going to have to take the training wheels off this offense and get it going, because they're sitting at the bottom of this division at 1-5, and they've got 1-6. So they've got no losses to give up.
Yeah. They've
got to win straight out. So, for those people with Calvin Johnson, if Matt Stafford's available on your waiver, I think you got to go add him. Eric Ebron, I mean, he made an immediate impact coming back, going 5 for 5 on his targets, 80-some yards and a TD score. I mean, he was solid right before he got hurt and was sort of on an upward curve in terms of his production. It's as if he skipped part of the curve, being out, and picked up where he should have been developing to. Golden Tate, I think, will have a better back half of the season. But I mean, the money is thrown it to Calvin Johnson. You've just got to take the shots and just let him go make his plays.
Yeah, you can't just ignore him. I mean,
right.
If he's not, if the defense is making their adjustments to take him out of the game plan, it's your job as an offensive coordinator to find a way to get him back into the game plan.
That's right.
You can't just leave talent out there as a decoy.
Yeah, I mean, and I found that amazing in what Joe Lombardi was trying to do. My understanding was he was trying to get the offensive line to do better in the protections, given the different types of plays that they were running. But it has to translate to putting points on the board such that you win.
Right.
You can't play football and not score points, and that's all there is to it. So, anyway, we'll see what happens, but from a fantasy perspective, I mean, some of these players, certainly there are some green lights on them that you have to kind of pay attention to, and, anyway.
Agreed.
Come to thefantasygreek.com and read all about it.
Extra, read all about it.
Read all about it, baby.
I need a newsy voice. Extra. That's it. I won't do it anymore. And with that, we are out of time. For Jim Sarantias from thefantasygreek.com, I'm Keith Grieve from 87sportsfans.com. Big thank you to my segment 1 guest, Brad Cook from Out of the Park Developments. The trivia question, kids: who is the career leader in World Series batting average? Email me, KeithGrieve at 87sportsfans.com. First correct answer gets a free copy of Out of the Park Baseball 16. Tomorrow night, we got the box seats in the Hold 1005 show. Wednesday night is the Fantasy Greek Starts and Sits. Thursday night's Johnny Bobo. Have a good week, everybody.
Post-game show is brought to you by Christ, I can't find it. The hell with it.